I don't believe I'm gonna go through 3 hours of makeup, just one shot. Well, hello there. So, here we are again. 3 weeks later. Because that's how you keep a consistent schedule. Just going away, nowhere to be found, for 3 weeks. Take notice. That's how you grow a YouTube channel. I don't know if you noticed, but things are kind of scary outside the window. Masks are now mandatory in my city. Meaning, I have to keep a mask on. Outside. I don't know why I keep this thing on inside. I mean, whoa! This thing's terrible. But it's keeping us safe. So that's the important things. Keep safe. I saw some people online doing cool masks. I didn't want to do the same as everyone else. I know, shocker. The girl who makes a dress on a drawing contest doesn't want to do the same as everyone else. Wow. Mind blown. So yeah, I was starting thinking, and I thought, what if my favorite fictional characters actually needed masks? How would their masks look like? And that's the whole point of this. I chose 3 of my favorite characters, and I tried to design masks that would make sense for them to wear in universe. So what kind of materials they have available, what kind of technology, what is the design of this said universe. So what would make sense for them to wear as a mask for protection. That's the challenge, and that's what we're gonna do right now, starting with the easiest one, Moana. Nesa Bové, costume designer for the movie, said the rules are simple. If it can be found on the island, it can be used. She also mentions the traditional garments have no seams. So I believe that the most simple cloth mask, like this one, would be a good guess for what Pacific Islanders would have chosen. We have then 2 options for fabric, Pennywise and tapa. The first one is a woven fabric, the one used for her skirt. And that kind of fabric would not offer any protection at all. So the obvious choice is tapa. That's the one she used on her top and her belt. And this fabric is made more like felt, so it offers a lot more protection. As for the design, I'm gonna stick with red, since it's Moana's main color throughout the movie. If you notice, her outfits are mainly red. And since every tapa piece she wears has its traditional prints on it, I'm gonna put them on the mask as well. But to make this a little more original, I will not recreate the same pattern, I'll make a version of it. Quick thing, before you guys have the wrong idea that I can draw, notice I use a cheetah under the paper. So let's design these things. So I went with a simple cloth covering the face and the straps made of raffia braid. To get around the no sewing rule, I cheated, like the movie did. Bové extrapolated that they may have created needles with whale teeth and used some sort of raffia thread. And so there will be some minor sewing on the sides. I kept the pattern simple and inspired by the one on her top. The real challenge here is to find red fabric that would look like tapa in between my scraps. As you can see, I only have one option available. The color is not a perfect match to the one I used for the actual cosplay, but I have to use what I have. Also, I cut some raffia from my skirt and gathered some fabric paint and thick thread. I started by cutting the fabric. Then I made some general measuring on a mannequin head and cut the excess. I'm pretty sure the Maori people didn't have scissors, so I'm not worried about a clean cut. I'm using tape to try to not mess up this painting part. I mixed black with red paint and I did the pattern not 100% symmetrical, because it will look better if it's not perfect. Now you tell me, why on earth did I decide to start painting on the bottom? You know how long I had to wait to paint the top because the paint on the bottom was wet? I need to learn how to plan ahead. And I didn't make this mistake once, I did twice, in a row. Anyways, tips on braiding raffia. Never braid raffia, and I cannot stress enough, never braid raffia. This took me so long and hurt my fingers so much. I don't want to do this ever again. I prefer a hot glue burn than this. You know how much paper cut hurts? Imagine this on all of your fingers. Pacific Island problems, am I right? So, since this was supposed to be a whale needle and raffia, I picked the biggest needle and thickest thread I could find. And that was a mistake. This needle was not ideal for this fabric and it took me a lot of strength to puncture through the fabric. Also, the reason why I chose to leave the raffia braid to be added after is a mystery to me. It would be so much easier to have it on before sewing. But the important thing is it's done and I love the result. And I don't say that very often. Okay, so how do you like that? Great example of how not to dance, right? Now let's move on to the next one. A little more action hero-ish. We're gonna do a mask for Rey. I know she technically wore a mask on Force Awakens, but it was just a sand protection. So let's just ignore that and focus on better examples of masks in Star Wars. And there are so many. Starting with the man himself, Vader, it feels like every character wore a mask or a helmet at some point in the saga. I found this example from the classic trilogy, and I'm digging the straps for sure. But the masks, they seem too normal, so I went looking for something different. Something more sci-fi, if you know what I mean. And I found this guy, whose name I will not even try to pronounce. And I think the design of his mask is a good representation for the design of Star Wars. And it even have the respirator, that if you pay attention, it is an item in almost every mask or helmet in Star Wars, even Vader's. So I believe this encapsulates well the technological limitations a character could find in this universe. And that was just the first thing I put on. Next, I added some side details and the straps inspired by hand and layer design. I decided to have silver for the mask and brown for the stripes, since Rey's accessories are usually brown, and the mask will be made out of foam scraps I have around. To start, I cut a piece of cheap fabric and wrap it around a mannequin's face. Then I draw the base for the mask with a pen. Next step is to draw the final lines. Fold the fabric and cut the mask. I made some dots on top and bottom to fit the nose and chin. If it all fits, I can cut it apart to use as pattern. The base of the mask is 3mm foam, and all the design on top will be made by layers of more foam. I cut the pieces and glue them together with cement glue. And we have the base for our mask. Next, I do the respirator. I use the front mask as size reference and add tabs around it. Then I cut it and create room for the tabs to be folded later. I cut the middle open to fit the respirator details. And then I add some cuts on the back to allow me to fold and glue it all, which I do with contact cement. I cut a rectangle in the 2mm foam, and then some small rectangles. You will notice I changed to hot glue. Is this the best option? Not really. It is messy, it has horrible finishing, and it burns. But I was losing my patience at this point. And every time I lose my patience, I switch to hot glue. Because despite all of its flaws, it's fast, and sometimes all you need is fast. That being said, I just glue all the pieces one over another, and finally added the respirator to the front of the mask. Now it's all gonna be a matter of cutting the pieces and gluing them on top of each other. I use different thickness, from 2 to 5mm foam. One thing I did off camera is sand all the pieces edges to make it look more round. And after it was all cut, I used the contact cement to apply them to the mask. If you guys have interest in any of the patterns, let me know and I'll provide a PDF for you. Now the only thing left to do before painting is applying a few coats of white glue. While the mask dries, let's make the straps. I cut a rectangle on my scrap fabric, leaving an allowance for a hem. Then sew it by machine, added the metal pieces and sew it again. I did not cut them because I wanted to measure on my head once done, and then add velcro to it. Back to the mask. I applied a base coat of black, and then silver on top. I decided a Star Wars mask needed an LED. So I gathered some materials and here it is. And that's me deciding where to put the LED on. You know, the thing about adding stuff to finished pieces is that you kind of have to destroy part of your work, and that hurts. Now all there's left to do is add the straps. And we are done! And that's how you know I'm never gonna get an Oscar. Oh. Okay, so next one. I can't believe I'm gonna spend 3 hours doing makeup for that. I mean, you guys better like and subscribe and comment, because it's 3 hours doing makeup for Gamora.
Touch me, and the only thing you're gonna feel is a broken jaw.
Star-Lord's helmet is the closest to a mask we see amongst the Guardians, so the idea is to make a version of it, but more like a half-face mask. She even wore it once already. The things I'm leaving on are the front of the mask and the ear shape. I'm getting rid of the side cylinders and out of the top and back, and changing the sides a little bit. I'm also making the small tubes way thinner. I used the same pattern from Rey's mask as a base for this one, and just added some more material. You guys remember how in the other video you could see nothing because it was so dark? Now you can see nothing because it's so bright. It's a change. Is it a good change? That's debatable, but it's a change nevertheless. Also, I made a paper pattern for the openings in the front. When working with scraps, sometimes we need some tricks to get enough material. That's life. After I cut the base from the front mask on 3mm foam, I cut it again on 1mm foam. And then use the paper pattern to mark and cut the small pieces. Next, I glue them together using contact cement. Note that I leave a small gap in between the pieces, and then I add a cut to the back to create the fold. To make it round, I heat it up with a heat gun and hold until cold, and then I cut out the side pieces, mark and glue them. Don't you guys just hate when you have to do symmetrical things? They never end up perfect. There's always a little bit that is bigger or an angle that is not exactly the same. I don't know, it just bothers me. Maybe I have OCD. Anyways, moving on. To add more detail, I create some panel lines. It's easy to do. Just cut them with a knife and heat it up and they just pop. Now for the earpiece, I'm actually using the same pattern I used for my Star-Lord helmet. I just cut and sand the parts. Did I ever tell you guys how much I hate sanding? Well, I hate sanding. Now you know. I also added some lines to the earpiece. Then I carefully put them together to figure out the exact position I'm gonna glue them. And I apply contact cement. And then just glue it all together. Now for the details. First is a small respirator on the bottom. This is a way more detailed piece on the original Star-Lord helmet, but I made a super simplified version of it with foam and added to the mask. To make the fold, I made a cut to the back and glued. And to be honest, it actually looks pretty decent. Those of you following my still short YouTube career will understand when I say that now I own an absurd amount of straws. So let's put them to use. Every single tube-like detail will be made of straws. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, go watch my 5-minute craft parody. I gave it a base coat of black, and now I'll add some details with silver paint. Problem is, all of the silver paint I have is spray. Are you ready for a life hack? So, how do you use the spray to do dry brush? I can't believe I'm saying that. Just spray the paint in the lid and use it like any other paint. The big problem is that this paint dries super quickly. This way I cannot clean the brush enough to achieve a delicate dry brush effect. And for that I had to retouch the black a few times. And that's the final result. So, which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. Would you like me to have done something different? Or maybe there's a character you'd like me to design a mask for? Drop a comment down below. I love to know your thoughts. I always do. You guys make my day, so keep commenting, keep making me happy. Well, that was fun. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell. Also, follow me on Instagram at Susanna.nature and Twitter at SusannaNature. And I see you soon. I hope.